Hi, Amber.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. So you are a cyborg anthropologist. What is that? That sounds cool.
So it's a relatively new field. I think it was developed in 1993 or 94 by the anthropology of science as a subsection. And really what it talks about is suddenly we're kind of a machine computer culture. We're interacting with so many screens every day, with escalators, with cars, with objects that we keep having to upgrade, with software. There's all these issues in terms of us getting information. We're using our cell phones all the time. So because of that, our interaction with these objects has to be studied as part of our culture, because now it's like there's certain sorts of etiquette. When you talk on your phone, it's, you have to do something.
Right, and then also our dependence on the technology and what happens when it fails or we don't have it, and how do we deal with that?
Yeah, so, and sometimes you have to charge, you have to take care of your technology as you would a person. For instance, you have to feed it by plugging it into the wall, by putting a battery in a charger. You have to know that the thing will last without, power for 3 days and then turn off. Depends on what kind of cell phone you have. And if you don't take care of it, it turns against you pretty quickly. Because, 3 days later, you're on the road and you need to make a call, but your cell phone's out, you lost your credit card, you don't have cash because you don't carry cash anymore, and your laptop's out of commission. So you have to go up to somebody and borrow their phone. But it's their phone, so then you have to look at this different interface and figure it out. So we have all these interfaces we're looking at and all these different things we do, and so that's basically cyborg anthropology, using anthropological methods to look at our culture today as one would kind of look at like a remote village, saying how curious, like how strange, like what are we really doing? Because a lot of times we get used to technology and it becomes very normal.
Right. And you should take a step back and look at it and kind of see what it really is.
So you go back in time and look at the history of the phone, and it was absolutely ludicrous. Like, it looked like schizophrenia. You'd go into a room, you'd sit down, you'd call somebody on the phone, and you'd talk into nothing. You'd talk into a machine, and that looked like really strange.
Yeah.
And then when the first cell phones came out, you talked to nothing. It used to be that you talked to nothing in a room and nobody could see you. But now that everybody could see you, then that boundary of private and public suddenly disappeared.
Right.
And we had to renegotiate all these like patterns of life and like how we experience things and how to get people to shut up, and suddenly all of our movies had cell phones in them and everything like that.
Well, and like getting used to people walking down the street talking to themselves, but they're really on a Bluetooth headset.
Right.
Still kind of getting used to that, but yeah. So what made you decide to get into this career?
So I was at a philosophy colloquium at my college, and this professor, Deborah Heath, who is a student of Donna Haraway, or a good friend of Donna Haraway's, told everyone about the field of cyborg anthropology. And she said, well, I'm going to teach a class. And I said, well, I have to take that class, it's very important. But basically, like, my dad's an inventor, like, both my parents are broadcast engineers, so they've always had a sort of media relationship in what they do. And I've kind of grown up with a computer. Like, my dad's like, if you want to play a game, you have to learn how to, figure out how to get there in DOS or something. So I've always had kind of a relationship with a computer, as if my computer was a dog.
Right.
And I was growing up with a dog, and the dog aged, and I had
and the dog passed away. You get a new dog.
A new dog, right? And you had to program the dog, or you're training the dog to do whatever, installing software commands on the dog, and it's kind of similar. So, and I also had a tape recorder when I was little, so I tried to figure out, like, wow, I can store parts of my voice from when I was 4 and play it back when I'm 6, and then I'd be listening to my past self. So I was thinking about, like, kind of time and space. Like, well, you're kind of having a time machine when you do that. You're kind of taking out some part of the past and putting it into a future place and space. So there's a lot of that going on online now. People are doing podcasts. We're doing a video podcast. So we're storing all this stuff in the future. We're kind of making copies of our past self in the process.
Right. And then how does that look down the road? Are we going to be embarrassed about it, or proud of it, or what?
This is just the early signs of a technological world, and we're kind of still the nerds of it. but then it'll just be so common and everyday.
And it's getting there.
Yeah.
So do you have any projects you're working on right now, or anything big you're doing?
Well, I'm writing a bunch of papers and doing a bunch of like studies of things, but a lot of like independent consulting. So like if people need to know like whether their product will survive in the new ecosystem or not, you know, you can kind of tell if you go in there, figure out like what's wrong, you know, or how to make sites more findable. For instance, if you're on a highway and you have like a child who is dying in the back seat of your car, and the exit sign that says hospital doesn't lead you to the hospital, your kid could die. So in that case, directions when you're traveling at really high speeds are really, really important, and they're life or death. So findability is really crucial. But the thing is, now we're living on the internet as if it were a highway system, as if it were a house. Sometimes people are kind of living inside Facebook. So architecture and findability is becoming really important. So sometimes what I do is really help people, like, if there's a hospital and the big problem is that their administrator office comes up as the first search result in Google, and the second result is their actual location. And you bring a kid to the administrator's office, which is 40 minutes away.
That's not a good thing.
Yeah, there's a company that dealt with that, and they were talking about that in an interview, that's life or death.
Yeah.
So now that the internet's so important,
It's
then,
life or death.
Yeah.
The internet.
Sometimes. So information.
Well, yeah, to me it pretty much is. So where can we find you on Twitter?
At Caseorganic, CaseOrganic, and I have a whole thing that I'm working on in Flickr where I just save and kind of annotate.
your profile links to that Flickr account, I think.
Yeah. So it's all through there.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, Amber.
Yeah, thank you.